Hello, this is a how-to video, how to use Prep Multi-Use Adhesive and our wonderful artistic tints together to do a sort of grouting effect. So this, you can see an amazing red colour in between the glass on this red sky. I can't show you the whole artwork yet because it's going to an exhibition and we're not allowed to photograph it beforehand. But you can see this amazing effect that it's created. It's sort of a grout, but I'm not going to call it a grout because obviously grout is a cement-based product, and we're using this adhesive to fill the gaps. But we can use the word grout sort of casually because you know what I mean. We're filling in the spaces between our pieces. So let me show you how it's done. First of all, what we need to talk about is the fact that it's very messy, and so you need to get prepared before you start. Wear gloves and have some cleaning things by your side so you're not like having to rush around finding them. So get prepared beforehand with all the things that you need. Now I've come up with a little idea of getting these bottles. I just bought these from the $2 shop. I don't really like buying or using single-use plastic, but they do have their places, and I think in doing this we actually can reuse them and then not have to throw things away, because initially I thought maybe you could use like a syringe, but then that would have to be thrown away. So I think this way what you can do is colour your prep with the tints, and then once you've put the cap on, you've got this coloured glue that you can use at a later date because it will remain airtight just like it does in this bottle. So you can see this one I've already mixed up a bright blue, so I've got that if I need to use it at some stage. So it might be worth getting a few bottles and mixing up a few colours. And you can see all the wonderful colours. This is just a small selection that we have in our tints, and this method is terrific if you want to get a really bright colour, because if you've done a bit of grouting in your life, you'll know that it's really hard to get something like a bright red, bright orange, bright yellow, you know, this like candy colour, vivid green, all those really hot colours. It's impossible to get them with a regular grout because you're mixing it with a white base or a grey base, so you're going to get a diluted colour. So this way what you're putting in between your pieces is the pure colour, because the glue dries clear. So you're just really getting the colour of the tint. So first of all, get your prep and fill up your bottle. Decide how much you want to make. If you fill up the bottle to the top, it's really hard to mix it. So for this one, I'm just going to mix it, like put it half. I just learnt by mistake because when I did this blue, I did end up shaking this for about half an hour, but it still hasn't mixed through fully. So maybe just leave some space for the mixing. Then I'm going to put the lipstick red tint in with the prep, and I'm just going to decant it from my large bottle because I don't want to open a new bottle. So the rule is about 10%, no more than 10%, but I think that should do it, because as we know, our tints are so intense that a little bit goes a long way. Now you really need to give it a good shake, so I'm going to shake this on and off for about 5 minutes. So I've got that pretty well mixed through, and you can see I've popped some newspaper underneath. I've put several layers because I might want to whip one out if it gets really messy. Also wearing clothes that don't matter, and an apron because it is a very messy process. Okay, so what I'm going to do is start by using the nozzle of the bottle to push it into these gaps. I don't expect to fill it all up on the first round. It can take a couple of goes, especially if the gaps are quite big. So that's pretty good, directing the solution into the actual gaps. What I'm going to do next is get an old spatula. Now these old cake spatulas are really good with the rubbery silicone ends. They're perfect for doing this. So you can, you know, usually rummage around your op shops, secondhand shops, and maybe find them that way. And then I'm using the rubber edge and keeping it straight and just pushing that solution into the gaps. So you can see how in some places it's filling up nicely, and in others it still needs a lot more. That's what this is good, because it's like a leveling tool. See how beautiful that has filled there? And that's pretty good. We might have to put a little bit more in here. And the end here. And that might be good for the first go. So I've got the solution into all of the cracks now, and I'm using my tool to redistribute some of the liquid that has gone on top of the glass. Now, have a look at the edges here. You can also use it to finish off the edges nicely, rather than having to seal them off with your cement-based things. I think that's a nice way of finishing off. Now remember, this is decorative, a decorative solution. It's not a functional solution. So grout has a functional purpose in a tile application for bathrooms and walls and things, and also a functional purpose for outdoor mosaics. This is not real grout, so its functional purpose, you know, cannot be relied on. So this is really for decorative arts, for you know, safety for indoors only. You can experiment, like if you want to do this for an outdoor piece and put it out, let me know how it goes. And it might not be, you know, immediate. You might have to wait a few years before you know if it's going to last a distance or not. But if you're looking for that intense color between your cracks, because you don't want to compromise on the color, this is a great solution. Like for me, this beautiful red glass, do not want to tamper it down with a mediocre diluted colored grout. So this is like matching the grout color to the glass. Now you can see what we have here is all this residue. Now this is not a water-based product, so it's not going to come off in the usual way where we've got a sponge and we clean it and all that sort of thing. It's tricky. The cleanup of this is messy, tricky and time consuming, but I think it's worth it with the result. If I start trying to clean it up now, what I'm going to be doing is disturbing the pool of liquid in these crevices, and they won't look as nice, and I'm quite happy with the level in some of these gaps. So what I'm going to do now is leave this and let it set until, and then come back for the full cleanup. In the meantime, do clean your tools, because a lot of the things you use for this kind of idea, you have to throw away your tools. Now if you clean this up pretty quickly, you will find that you will be able to reuse it. If you just left it, that would set hard, and then you might not be able to use it again for another color. So always clean up your tools immediately. I'm just using a baby wipe there. I find they're quite good for this. It's almost pointless doing it underwater. You might not get it fully clean, but at least you've taken off the, you know, the majority of it. So while I'm waiting for that red to dry, I'm going to revisit this piece, which some of you might have seen me working on in a previous video. And the idea for using Prep Multiuse adhesive for other reasons other than adhesive really came about because I was trying to find a background coating as opposed to the cement-based render coating that I've done and do a lot, with my Sculpt and Stick product, which makes a wonderful rendered coating, but I didn't want that matte finished cementous look for this. I wanted something shiny, and I had painted it initially and put it outside. It had been there for a couple of years and the color had completely faded out, so I wanted to try something different. So what I did is I mixed the prep with some of the black tint, and experimented, and I got this lovely thick resinous look. Now in the last video I did have a question, why don't you just paint it? And the answer to that was I just wanted it to look a bit thicker than paint, and it does. It's quite thick and viscousy. So also, like, sometimes you want to cover that crisscross effect that you get from the thermosheet or the Marmox. I actually quite like it on this piece. If you're not a mosaic person and you're not familiar with the product of thermosheet or Marmox, so this is Marmox, which I used to use. I'm now always using thermosheet, which has the crisscross that way, and the Marmox has that sort of pattern. If you're a mosaic person, use these products, you know that this is a board made out of that. And you might think, oh, I don't want people to see that. But if you think about it, most people who are viewing your artwork are not doing mosaics. They don't know about this board and the texture. And they might think, wow, that's clever. I wonder how she got that texture. So don't let that visible texture put you off, because it might be something that actually adds something to your piece. If it doesn't add something to your piece and you want to get rid of it, then what you do is you do a second coat. And instead of just painting it on, you kind of pull it on. And that is going to completely obscure and fill that texture. And you're going to be left with this gorgeous, glossy, thick coating. I mean, you do go through a bit of product, but if you're after a certain look, then it's worth it. Now, in using a paintbrush, you have to accept the fact that you will have to throw it away. I've tried cleaning them in acetone and other things, but nothing seems to get the paintbrush clean. So use an old paintbrush or really cheap paintbrushes. Again, hate wasting and doing single-use things. I guess you could keep the end as a stirrer and reuse it again. So always think about reusing, repurposing, and trying to limit your waste. So you'll see what that looks like when it's dry. I'm not going to cover this with a second coat because I like it just the way it is. So a couple of hours at least have passed, and you can see that this now is a beautiful thick coat, and it's obscured most of that pattern. So that's really nice if you want to do a heavier coat of that for a kind of a background or an area. And now we'll move back across to the red work and see how we're going. Now, if you have a close look at the gaps now, you can see that we've got a bit of something that has happened. So the solution has settled into the gaps, and it's showing now where we need to put more. But before I put more, I'm going to just give this a bit of a clean up so you can see how we do the cleanup. So first of all, you need to get some acetone. Now, acetone is easy to get hold of in your hardware stores. It's inexpensive, and it is pretty much the only thing that's going to get this off. Somebody has told me that they used non-acetone nail polish remover, and that also worked. So acetone, I put a little bit in a glass bottle for myself to use. Now, it is quite smelly, it is toxic, so you do need to wear a mask, which I'm putting on now, and make sure you wear gloves and glasses or safety glasses, just because the fumes are quite strong. See, look, there's a little insect here that's just been maybe exposed. It seems to be in its dying throes. maybe that's just a coincidence. Anyway, it's just a bit of a joke. So what you need is a sharp pointy tool. I like to use these little craft knives that you can get quite cheaply in $2 shops. They're pretty good for cleaning up with. And have a few rags on hand. It's better to have a few small ones rather than one big one. Now let's have a look at how this goes with nothing. So it's pretty much set. It's just like it's a coating, so it's not going to come off by itself. Now with your acetone, you can just first of all try wetting your rag rather than spraying it everywhere, because what happens is it actually evaporates really quickly. So you can see with me rubbing in like that, it's actually coming away really well, that thin membrane. Now I'm going to try spraying a little bit and see how that goes. It'll soften it ahead of time, but there's absolutely no point in spraying the whole thing, because by the time you get to that area it will have evaporated and you'll have to respray it anyway. So I'm actually being really careful not to go too near to into the crevices. I'm just getting one finger like this and rubbing the surface, and that is coming off absolutely beautifully. And in the stubborn places where it's a bit thicker, you can get your pointy tool and do a little bit of scratching work, just scraping it off. So it is a bit of work, and the thicker that it is, the harder it is, but it is easier to do it once it's sort of set like this. Now, I'm just going to clean up on camera this area and this area on this side, so I can show you what to do in the section that hasn't filled very well. I mean, it's pretty much most of the mosaic is going to need a bit of a touch up. So this area is, you know, fairly well cleaned, and so now I would get my my prep and tint mix again and just pop it into the gaps like that. Now I don't want to smear it everywhere this time, otherwise I'm going to have, you know, to do the whole big cleanup again. So I'm just going to put it in like quite carefully and then immediately wipe off that edge. Otherwise I'm going to have to clean the whole thing again, aren't I? Whoops, went a bit into the into that. So if that happens to you, you can just put a little bit more. Now if your gaps are really big, you might even have to do that a couple of times here and there. Like for instance, this section here is very deep, and here too it's sunk in a lot. So if the second fill doesn't fully fill it after it's set, and you can see how it settles, you might have to do this a little bit more a third time. So I'm going to keep going now and cleaning up the rest of this, and then I'll come back to the camera and show you how it looks. So I'm about halfway through this process of cleaning and then refilling where it needs a little bit more filling, and then cleaning again. And I want to show you a little problem that I've been encountering. This is like something that I've encountered. It is a matter of learning by your mistakes, and showing you this, hopefully you won't make the same mistake. So these black lines here are where I drew on the glass for my score lines, to cut out the glass that I wanted to fit nicely together. Now what I should have done is cleaned this texture mark off before this resin process, because what's been happening is when I clean it off, it's leaving this black mark, and it's kind of like sitting on the edge there, you can see it there, of the glass, and creating this sort of mucky look, which has been a bit of a problem with the cleanup. So what I've been having to do is scrape that out before I refill. So it's actually held me back a fair bit. So what I would like you guys to do before you start the resin grouting process with the prep, make sure that you've cleaned off any texture marks that are on your glass before, rather than as you go. I just thought they'd come off easily with the acetone, and they would have if I hadn't have trapped them underneath the prep. So I've gone through quite a bit of acetone already, all this in this cleanup, and I will continue now and finish the rest and touch up the gaps like I have on this side, and then show you the result then. So just putting the finishing touches, last polish to this little mosaic that I've created using the spectacular red glass, and the idea of filling the cracks with the Prep Multiuse adhesive mixed with our awesome tints. And it just comes up a treat and gives you a great alternative where you don't want to lose that vibrance of the glass, and you just want to fill the crevices with something that brings out the colour, matches the colour, and doesn't tone it down with a grout. So it is messy and time consuming. I did have to leave it overnight after the second fill and come back today and just do a little bit more patching up here and there because the gaps were quite big, so that the solution settles a little and leaves a few bubbles. Also, I switched to using the red cloths because I actually found that the black was coming off from the black cloths too, because we're using a strong chemical like acetone. So use undyed cotton, or you know, match the colour of the cloths that you're going to be using for the cleanup. So really happy with that, and I hope you give it a go. I really want you to give it a go. We're doing a very special offer on our Prep Multi-Use Adhesive. You actually get a free bottle depending on how many tints you order. So this is our special offer at the moment. We've got in stock now a really small, cute, handy little bottle. That's great if you're going to class or you're traveling and you just want to take a small bottle with you. Then we've got the 250ml bottle that we've been using all along. And now I've also got these 500ml bottles as well. And they're really good value because you get a lot more for your money. So the deal is, if you buy 6 tints, you will get a free bottle, the little bottle. So that's a great deal. If you buy 10 tints, whoops, you will get a free bottle of the 250ml, which is a wonderful size to have. Some of you have already taken advantage of that deal. Now, if you buy 15 tints, you will get that a free bottle of the big one, which I find I'm going through it like water at the moment, doing all this wonderful creative stuff with it. So that might be an option for you. So stock up on your tints. They're all on our website. I'll put the link for this special offer. Then you need to go to the actual listing where the colours are shown and choose your colours and send me a message with which colours that you would like, and you'll be able to grab a free bottle of Prep Multi-Use Adhesive. So take advantage of this offer while it lasts and have so much fun experimenting with this awesome new technique.